17,000 subscribers divided by 58 million, 17,000 subscribers divided by 57 million followers. Do you know what percentage went? Do you guys really want to know? 0.003% went to want to subscribe to her channel. Did you understand what number I just said right now? To say they've lost their influence and their sizzle of what the Obamas used to be would be an
From the very beginning, Michelle Obama's public life has been less about politics and more about performance. She wasn't just introduced as a first lady. She was presented as a brand carefully packaged, endlessly marketed, and polished until flawless. Every photograph, every soundbite, every interview seemed designed to build a narrative. The down-to-earth mom who just happened to live in the White House. She ate at Chipotle, shopped at Target, and posed as the neighbor next door, even while surrounded by Secret Service and unimaginable privilege. Patrick Bet-David wasted no time pointing out how deliberate this construction really was. Michelle didn't rise to cultural dominance because of groundbreaking accomplishments or hard-fought elections. She rose because her image was crafted to be bulletproof, relatable enough to inspire trust, glamorous enough to command attention, and safe enough to be sold back to the public as a product. It wasn't authenticity, it was marketing genius. And the more America bought into the idea, the more Michelle's persona became untouchable. But as Patrick would remind his audience, every perfect brand comes with cracks, and those cracks are where the truth starts to leak through.
This is her talking about how expensive it was to live in the White House. Go for it.
It's expensive to live in the White House.
Yeah.
As many people don't know. Sure. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every food, every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the plane. It is an expensive proposition, and you're running for 2 years and not earning an income.
Michelle Obama's transformation from First Lady to global superstar didn't happen by accident. It was the result of branding at its finest. After leaving the White House, she didn't fade into the background like so many political spouses before her. Instead, she became a franchise. Book deals worth tens of millions, Netflix production contracts, a Spotify podcast, and speaking fees so massive they made headlines, all tied to her name, not her policy. Her empire wasn't built on leadership or governance. It was built on being a symbol. Patrick Bet-David ripped into this, pointing out the irony of how someone unelected, someone never held accountable at the ballot box, managed to cash in bigger than most career politicians. And the message behind it all? Relatability. Michelle positioned herself as the voice of the everyday woman, the mom who understood what ordinary Americans went through. Yet, as Patrick highlighted, she promoted that image while flying private jets, living in multi-million-dollar estates, and commanding fees for speeches that cost more than many families will make in a lifetime. It wasn't leadership. It wasn't sacrifice. It was marketing. And like any good product, it was sold with flawless packaging until someone like Patrick started peeling back the label.
Obama's net worth in 2007. What was Obama in 2007? 1.2 million, 1.3 million. Okay, so their net worth is, let's write this down. This is pre-White House. Their collective net worth was 1.3 million. Can you go to where their net worth was in 2016 when they're done being president? Okay. 2016, so their net worth, as expensive as it was, they went from being 1.3 million.
If there's one theme Michelle Obama never lets go of, it's struggle. Her speeches and interviews are filled with stories of doubt, rejection, and the feeling of being unseen. She often reminds audiences of the obstacles she faced, the times people underestimated her, the barriers she had to push through. On the surface, it's empowering. It makes her sound like the underdog who clawed her way to the top against all odds. But Patrick Bet-David doesn't buy it. He calls out the contradiction hiding in plain sight. Michelle wasn't scraping by in obscurity. She went to Princeton. She went to Harvard Law. She married a man who became president of the United States, and she lived in the most famous house in the world. And today, she's worth millions. Yet somehow, Her brand still leans on a storyline of being the overlooked outsider. Patrick exposes this as one of the greatest marketing tricks of her career, victimhood packaged as empowerment. It's a narrative that tugs at emotions, pulls audiences in, and convinces them she understands their hardships, even as she delivers the message from stages that cost thousands of dollars per ticket. To Patrick, it isn't authenticity. It's performance art. And the fact that millions still buy into it is what makes the hustle so powerful. But that wasn't the only contradiction Patrick uncovered.
Well, Rogan's interviewing other people. You're sitting there, and then you see panel. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You can say whatever you want about The View. Guess what everybody talks about every week? The View. Why? Because here's what she said, here's what he said, here's what she said.
Yeah.
So they're bringing, even though you can't stand what they stand for, they bring, what do you call it, Tulsian. They'll bring and have the fight with Stephen A. They'll bring and put the people on there, Junior and all these guys, and have the conversations with them. Of course, you don't agree with it. Michelle is doing a podcast from the standpoint of, you guys know why.
One of the biggest contradictions in Michelle Obama's public life is her constant claim that she's done with politics, while never really leaving it. Time and again, she tells interviewers she craves privacy, that she's tired of the spotlight, that she has no intention of diving back into the political arena. And yet, every election cycle, she reappears like clockwork. She gives speeches, releases statements, and reminds Americans of what's at stake. Patrick Bet-David zeroes in on this double act. On one hand, Michelle positions herself as the reluctant outsider, the woman who doesn't want the headaches of politics. On the other, she uses her platform to shape narratives, sway voters, and keep her influence alive. It's a balancing act designed to keep her above accountability. She gets to lecture, criticize, and weigh in without ever being on the ballot herself. Patrick compared her tone to that of a stern school principal scolding a classroom. Instead of motivating, she often comes across as condescending, talking down to Americans as if they can't think for themselves. And that's where the problem lies. Millions of people are told to view her as an inspirational figure, yet what they actually get feels less like inspiration and more like moral superiority. For Patrick, the contradiction is crystal clear. Michelle wants the influence without the responsibility, the voice without the consequences. And that double standard is what makes her political role so unique and so frustrating. But Michelle's contradictions don't stop there. Because when it comes to her image as a champion of women, Patrick argues the irony only gets deeper.
Let me tell you what I think she's trying to do. And again, pure speculation, folks. I may be fully wrong here. I think she's taking a page out of Jada Pinkett's playbook. Because I think they're getting ready to announce that something's going on in the marriage. And I think this is their way of doing it in a very subtle way. Because if you're taking shots at him slowly, you're taking shots, they're going in games in different ways. I'm not sure if there's been an entanglement or not, but I think there may be a possibility of a news coming here soon that could actually get her podcast to blow up. And you know what could get her podcast to blow up? If she announces that
Michelle Obama has long been celebrated as a symbol of women's empowerment, the strong, independent figure who inspires millions of women around the world. Her books, her tours, her speeches are all framed around this idea that she represents what women can achieve if they push through barriers. But Patrick Bet-David points out the paradox that lies underneath. Her entire platform, her entire global influence, didn't begin with independence. It began with proximity to power, the fact that she was married to the man who became president. That doesn't take away from her intelligence or her accomplishments, but Patrick highlights the contradiction. How can Michelle sell herself as the ultimate example of female empowerment when her rise was tied so closely to her husband's political career? It's a message that sounds inspiring on stage, but rings hollow when examined closely. And it doesn't stop there. Even her ventures after the White House, the documentaries, the podcasts, the production deals are packaged as giving back, framed as efforts to uplift and inspire. But as Patrick points out, they look less like selfless projects and more like highly profitable ventures. It's capitalism wrapped in activism, empowerment turned into entertainment, all while keeping the Obama brand front and center. The irony, Patrick argues, is that Michelle speaks about independence while her empire was built on the foundation of a political dynasty. And that contradiction is something few dare to question, but Patrick tears right into it. But perhaps the most telling contradiction of all is the one that keeps popping up every few years, the whispers, the speculation, the question everyone asks, but she never fully answers.
Barack Obama makes shockingly honest admission about the state of his marriage to Michelle. Okay? So here we go. Barack Obama, shocking admission about the state of his marriage to Michelle. Go a little bit low, Rob, if you could. So everybody's wondering, like, you weren't there, Jimmy Carter funeral, you weren't there, Trump, and Michelle I'm talking about, and then you start a podcast with your brother. Barack Obama makes shocking admission about Michelle Obama. I was in deep deficit with my wife. He told Tepper, conversation Thursday. So I've been trying to dig myself out of that hole by doing occasionally fun.
Few topics spark more debate than the question, will Michelle Obama ever run for president? She has said countless times she has no interest, repeating that politics isn't for her, that she values her privacy and her family life too much. But here's the catch, she never fully closes the door. She denies, but she doesn't shut it down completely. And that's where Patrick Bet-David zeroes in. Patrick argues that this is one of Michelle's cleverest strategies. By keeping the suspense alive, she maintains influence. The whispers of what if give her more power than a campaign ever could. Every time her name trends as a possible Democratic savior, her relevance skyrockets and her platform grows stronger. If she truly had no interest, Patrick points out, she could end the speculation instantly. But she doesn't. And that silence speaks louder than any denial. To Patrick, it's classic political theater. By appearing reluctant, Michelle seems humble, above the fray, uninterested in power. Yet, by never slamming the door shut, she ensures she remains the party's most talked about secret weapon. The act keeps her image polished, her audience hopeful, and her critics guessing. And in Patrick's view, that's the telltale sign of someone who knows exactly how to play the game. But Michelle's ability to stay relevant isn't just about speculation. Patrick says it also comes from how she shields herself from criticism, a tactic he calls her most powerful weapon.
Outrageous. Let me read this to you, and Thomas Ellsworth, I'm coming to you first, so please be prepared with all your notes.
Ready.
Obama's office spokesperson, Patrick Rodenbush, great first name, rejected the office of the Director of National Intelligence. Reports claim that senior Obama administration officials orchestrated the Russia collusion hoax, stating, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. And he called the allegations outrageous and ridiculous, a weak attempt of distraction.
One of the sharpest points Patrick Bet-David makes is about Michelle Obama's use of identity as a shield. Criticize her policies? You're accused of being unfair. Question her contradictions? You're labeled bitter or resentful. Push back too hard? Suddenly, it's sexism or prejudice. Patrick calls this the ultimate defense mechanism, not addressing the substance of criticism, but dismissing it by framing the critic as the problem. It's an approach that has worked brilliantly for years. By leaning on her image as a symbol of progress, Michelle has built a kind of protective barrier around her brand. To question her isn't just to question a public figure, it's painted as questioning progress itself. That emotional framing makes her almost untouchable in the eyes of her supporters. And Patrick argues this is one of the most dangerous tactics in modern politics, when identity becomes a shield strong enough to deflect even the most legitimate scrutiny. But Patrick doesn't stop at pointing out the shield. He digs deeper into how it shapes the culture around her. Every time she dodges accountability by turning criticism into a moral issue, the public is trained to accept image over reality. Instead of debating ideas, people debate feelings. Instead of examining contradictions, they rally around a symbol. And in Patrick's words, that's not leadership, it's manipulation. Still, Patrick insists this isn't just about Michelle. It's about what she represents in the bigger picture. Because her story isn't only a reflection of her brand, it's a mirror held up to the state of modern politics itself.
Any of this crap? No, nothing. Obama was silent. Why is Obama silent? Ask yourself, ladies and
He's
gentlemen.
above this.
Or maybe he's deep in it. Maybe he's not above it, he's deep in it. And so he sends a spokesperson, Patrick Rodenbush, which is what Obama does. He's never Rodenbush, is got an issue here.
What was that?
Now he goes, the office of the presidency and the office. So they're speaking in third person. Whenever you have people in Washington that are cornered, they speak in third.
Patrick Bet-David makes it clear that Michelle Obama's story isn't just about her. It's about what she symbolizes in today's political culture. In his view, she's the perfect product of an era where celebrity matters more than substance, where branding outweighs achievement, and where the appearance of leadership is more valuable than the reality of it. The fact that Michelle, someone who never ran for office, never passed legislation, and never debated policy, is still treated as a looming political figure tells us something deeper about modern politics. It shows how addicted our culture has become to personality and nostalgia. People aren't looking for policies, they're looking for symbols, for icons who make them feel a certain way. And Michelle delivers that feeling in carefully curated doses. Patrick argues this is why her name keeps coming up whenever the Democratic Party is in trouble. Floating her as a candidate isn't about new ideas or fresh vision. It's about trying to revive the magic of the Obama years, to slap a glossy filter over a struggling system. But that reliance on image exposes the party's weakness. Instead of building a bench of real leaders, they fall back on familiar names and familiar faces. And Michelle, with her perfectly managed brand, becomes the ultimate fallback option. For Patrick, that's the bigger tragedy. Michelle Obama isn't just a symbol of personal contradictions. She's a reflection of how politics has become more about selling a lifestyle than solving problems. More about applause than accountability. More about appearances than achievements. And that's where Patrick's roast hits hardest, because once you see the pattern in Michelle, you start recognizing it everywhere in politics.